But Jim, let's get another question here. This was sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group by Timothy Proctor.
I remember his father, Dr. Proctor. He had the patent on the red rectum rockers, the constipation pills.
All right, I don't know about that, Jim, but here's the question from Timothy Proctor. Looking back, what does Jim think was the most underrated feud or storyline in Smoky Mountain Wrestling that fans today don't talk enough about?
Oh, gosh. I don't know which things the fans are not talking enough about these days. I mean, the big programs were that it seemed like it did pretty much the most money for us around at the big shows, not just the big main event blow-off shows, but the Knoxville and Johnson cities, as well as the spot shows, was the Heavenly Bodies and the Rock and Roll Express, Tracy Smothers and the Dirty White Boy. And then, to be honest, the Rock and Roll and Lee and Candido, that might be one of the underestimated ones, because they did good, especially on spot shows, of course, the Rock and Roll. Me and Bob Armstrong, a lot of people talk about, but at the same time, a lot of people don't remember we had Dory and Terry Funk work the program with the Armstrong boys, Scott and Steve. And those were some cool tag matches that were different, featured different guys. There was Chris Candido and Bobby Blaze. You're fairly knowledgeable on what we did.
Gee,
what
thanks,
do you think
mister.
that we're not?
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean on what we, the television and what programs we did and everything. What am I underestimating or what am I overlooking that people should have been?
Underrated. Because I feel like people finally really rate everything leading into the first Bluegrass Brawl pretty high in terms of the 3 tag team stuff. The Brian Lee Kevin Sullivan feud was one of the things that really got me, because that was the first stuff I saw, and it was so cool to me. It's the only time I ever enjoyed the Night Stalker.
Well, and see, again, that was a good one, but I don't know if it's underrated, because that got a lot more conversation from the smart fans at the time who were trading tapes and talking about things. We're talking more about that than they were about the Rock and Roll and the Bodies that was drawing the money. So it's not necessarily underrated. And Kevin was a big help with. Kevin worked with the Mongolian Stomper. He did the thing with Brian Lee.
That may be underrated too. The thing with him and the Stomper. Yes. Yeah.
And him and Bubba, the Big Boss Man, even though they just had a couple of matches that weekend. But yeah, Kevin and the Stomper, because Kevin knew how to work with Stomper. Keep it crazy. And Stomper had great cardio, but Archie, at that point, he was almost 60. So go balls to the wall for like 7 or 8 minutes and fucking tear the place up and get the fuck out of there before Archie gets tired.
I remember Scott Cornish telling me, because I didn't go to the first fan week in 93. I started after that. And I'm pretty sure it was the very first event, and it may have been Morristown, but there was the Mongolian Stomper against Kevin Sullivan. And before brawls around the building were a common thing, these two guys brawled all around the building, in and out.
Yeah.
And he said it was like nothing he had ever seen before.
Well, and see, that's the thing, is because that's what you did with the Stomper, but nobody else did that. I mean, we had an angle one time where the Heavenly Bodies and the Gangstas fought out the back of the building in Knoxville and across the street, and we shot it, right? But that's an angle. And we had a gang fight match with the Bruise Brothers and the Bodies where they fought all over the building in Knoxville one time. But that was, the stipulation that we did that year, right? So, but with Archie, he's supposed to be crazy. And the bigger that you can build that 10 minutes of chaos up, it was like the Sheik without, snakes and too much blood. And that's the thing, Archie couldn't get juice anymore, the Stomper, because he worked for the sheriff's department. He transported prisoners. Some of them, they had AIDS. He didn't want any open wounds, right? They were, okay, we don't have to. It's still it's you play the Halloween music and everybody goes crazy. And it's wild and it's in and out. And I remember that night they went out the back door and they came around, they fought back in the front door. And the people go nuts. And in 8 to 10 minutes, they've been out there, they've done it. You don't beat the Stomper, because why would you beat a legend? And they were all happy.
But again, underrated feuds or storylines. Oh, you know what?
What? Go ahead.
Underrated because it was immediately overshadowed. And I think it's still underrated to this day, probably. Tracy Smothers and Chris Candido ladder match.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, because that ladder match because they had them in all the towns, including, I had just seen Shawn and Razor in Los Angeles at a WWF house show. And they did the spot, and I told the guys about it. Shawn went too far up when they shot him into the ladder that was leaning in the corner. He went up too far and overbalanced and went straight over the top rope and almost killed himself. And I'll be damned if Tracy didn't do the same thing in Beckley, West Virginia. Only took even worse of a bump because we didn't have pads. And the ladder went over with him and landed. I was goddamn brutal. But anything Tracy and Candido did, those were excellent matches also. I can't believe I didn't bring that up at the start. And also, again, it wasn't underrated, but Buddy Landell's babyface turn. And stemming out of the match he had for the Intercontinental title with Shawn Michaels in Knoxville. And they had a great match, and the finish worked perfect. And, that began his babyface turn against me and the rest of my reprobates. But that was a nice little piece of business. I loved the build to the Rock and Roll Express and Tracy and Tony, Dirty White Boy.
And it resulted eventually in a great match, just not with the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes, one of the better matches in Smoky Mountain history with the substitute Heavenly Bodies. But we did all that whole build for like 6 weeks and never had the goddamn match between Tracy and Tony in the Rock and Roll, because that's when things happened outside the ring with Ricky and Tracy and their significant others.
And I remember being down there that was the Super Bowl Bowl of wrestling. And they actually had TV commercials, local TV commercials with Ricky and Andrea Morton advertising some outlaw show against you. I don't even know if it was Terry Landell. It was someone against you. It may have been.
I'm sure it was. And boy, well, maybe they got the people that couldn't get into the Coliseum that night. But nevertheless, I'm still pricklish 30 years later.
It was cool, though. I'll say this as a fan who was like a heel fan. And also because I already knew you kind of root for the people you know. But, I'm a heel fan. I didn't know the Heavenly Bodies were there. So when you hit the ring and then you hit the music, it was a real cool moment. And then the match was just an amazing match with that pile driver through the table. The greatest one ever. Yeah, good times. Good times.
Yeah, and
the popcorn was great. The soda was great. Everything was great.
But here's the table spot. I think I told you this before, but because we're having a crazy match and it's the blood and everything, because we're trying to start a new program. The Bodies had just become available because they're running. New York had come to an end, so they're coming back. And I wanted to keep Tony and Tracy babyface because the program with the Rock and Roll Express wasn't going to happen. So they're having the crazy match, and we're going to break a table. It's the big show of the year, so we're going to break a fucking table in one match. And Tracy backdropped Tom out on the floor. He backdropped him onto the table, but it didn't break because he hit it at a slant rather than straight on. So I buzzed by. I said, break it some kind of way. And as Tracy got up and grabbed Tom's a pile driver, whatever, and Tracy gave him that pile driver, and it's not one of the Formica tables like they sell at Home Depot. The Knoxville Civic Coliseum in like 1964 had bought 7,000 of these tables that they still had. I mean, I was there in the 70s, and this is the 90s. It's the same fucking tables. And they were particle board. And when Tracy gives Tom the pile driver, Tracy's ass went just in a hole through the table without breaking the frame. And Tom went in on top of him, and they were stuck folded up like a pocket knife. Tracy ass first and Tom head first in this fucking table. And you couldn't do that on purpose. Somebody ought to go buy all the rest of those tables from the Knoxville Civic Coliseum.
You know, I just saw, I think you retweeted it, Tommy Noe put up the show notes because he was the ring announcer that night in Knoxville. And I had never seen them before. And it reaffirmed just a thought and a feeling I had. You know, that Judge Otto dealer promo. Like when I would think back to it, I couldn't remember when it was. I kind of thought it was like in the middle of the show and it went for 20 minutes. Turns out it was right before the main event. Maybe that's why it felt so long because we were ready for the main event. Yeah. And there's this guy, and we thought at first, because we didn't know. We don't know who like the Knoxville local TV celebrities are. I think a lot of us smart fans thought, oh, there's a new heel manager. Okay, there's a little gimmicky for the area, but let's see where this goes. And then it went nowhere. What they trying to tell you to come down to the car lot and buy some cars.
No. Where it went was we got our monthly check from fucking Classy Motors is where it went because Judge Otto Dealer got to tell him. But did you read the format real close? Because
tape, that's where the tape was changed. Yeah.
Judge Otto Dealer was covering the tape change before the main event, so we made sure we didn't run out.
Did he know that?
Well, I didn't bother sharing it with him.
No, but was it like, go long, we need the extra time, go long? Was that
no, I knew he was, whatever he went, it was going to be too long. So I just said, do the thing you're supposed to do.
It was like a fever dream for a while because he never appeared again on like TV unless you got the commercials with the show. It's like, who was Judge Otto Dealer and why did he disappear?
I've got to go back and check the paperwork, but I think they may have paid for the pizza for the pre-show pizza party for the Golden Circle tickets also.
The judge gives the right verdict, I'll say. But thank you for the question.